Hey, what's going on, everybody, and welcome back to another Fallout 4 Mods Weekly, and Merry Christmas to all of those of you who celebrate it, and Happy Holidays to the rest of you guys. I hope you've had a nice winter season, but now we are back with some new Fallout 4 mods. We'll be checking out all of the really cool and interesting mods that have come out in the past week for Fallout 4, and we've got a nice variety this week, some really cool stuff, and some big changes to the way that Fallout 4 actually functions, which is what we're going to start off with in our first mod, which is known as Directly Moddable Stored Weapons by LarannKiar. Really hope I'm pronouncing that right, but this is a very simple mod, but one that does some amazing stuff. This is going to allow you to modify weapons from your workshop that are not in your inventory, and I think the best way to show this off is to actually take this in game and show it to you in real time. So here we are at my workshop, and as of right now, I have a handful of weapons in my inventory. As you can see, these are all here in my Pip-Boy, and if I was to modify these, they would work as you'd expect. But let's say I was to open up the workshop inventory, head over to the weapons section. You see I have a couple here already. Let's dump in some more, and we need to leave at least one so that we can actually trigger the workbench. And whenever we go to craft these things, you'll see all of the weapons that we just deposited into the workshop are here, even though they're not in my inventory. And just to show you, let's check my Pip-Boy really quick. I only have one weapon in my inventory, yet it's showing everything in the workbench, which is so cool. This is a feature I know people have been asking for a very long time, and now it is here. So we can just go into our workshop, it'll load everything in from the workshop, and we can set it up to modify these however we want. That way you don't have to waste a bunch of carry space on your actual inventory. You can just dump things into your workshop and modify from there. But that's not all. Additionally, you can actually set up custom containers with different commands featured on the mod page. So you could set up, say, this workshop cabinet right here can be the storage place for all of your weapons, and then it will pull from that inventory. Or you can even set it up to different settlers. But still, even just having this workshop integration, which is where most people probably dump their weapons anyways, is really cool. Being able to customize absolutely everything at your settlement from the go is so cool. Just to show you that these changes actually do take effect, let's grab our machine gun here. Let's throw on an advanced receiver, maybe a shorter barrel, and let's go give it a tactical stock. Why not? And then whenever we head out of here and open up the workshop inventory, you will see our machine gun, which should be one of these. I believe it's this one here. We'll now have all of the changes that we made to it, even though it wasn't in our inventory. Isn't that super cool? Awesome work by LarannKiar, a really wonderful mod that I think is going to have a permanent spot in my load order. This is a really cool quality of life improvement to the game. The next mod up today is the first of our weapon mods, and this is known as the Institute Experimental Phaser Pistol by Micalov. Oh yeah, that's right, Micalov is back at it again with another Institute weapon, and this one is pretty cool. This is a nice little Institute Phaser Pistol, kind of reminiscent of the phasers from Star Trek, in my opinion, and I believe Micalov may have even posted some screenshots comparing it to that in the Discord. But this is a really cool, unique Institute weapon, which I do believe will be featured in Micalov's larger Institute weapon overhaul project, but now you can download this little guy standalone. As it functions in the game, unlike Micalov's other Institute weapon mods, this one is actually one of a kind. It is not added to any leveled lists. Instead, you need to head over to the Institute Advanced Systems to pick this thing up, and there is only one of them. And since it is very unique, it actually doesn't have any attachments at the weapons workbench. Micalov actually states that this is pretty comparable to the Alien Blaster, as it does the same damage, and it even uses the same animations, though it does work pretty well. You open up the side and jam a tiny little fusion cell in there, and it looks really cool. Now beyond that, there's not much more to it. This is a very simple energy weapon. Like I said, it's a one of a kind and it has no attachments. This weapon comes as is, but it does do some decent damage, again comparable to that Alien Blaster, and makes for a nice little Institute sidearm. If you're really going whole hog on the Institute playthrough and you only want to use Institute weapons, pairing this with some of Micalov's other mods I think works really well. You can pick up an Institute laser rifle, maybe a heavier version of that weapon from Micalov, and then also carry this Institute phaser as a nice little sidearm. Much like Micalov's other weapons, this one does use vanilla textures, so any retextures or Creation Club skins that you apply to this thing will work, which is really cool. There's not much more to it than that, a nice little energy weapon to add to your load order, especially if you're a fan of the Institute. Now for our next mod, we have something I'm really excited about, and that is the Immersive Turret Replacer mod by Hexod Purple. This mod is going to replace a ton of the turrets scattered around the Commonwealth. Specifically, it's going to replace them with turrets from the Handmade Turrets mod by Ruinedworld. Now, if you're not familiar with that, this is going to add a ton of really cool handmade looking turrets that are made out of pipe weapons and scrap metal that make shields, and it all looks like something that settlers would actually build. I don't know where everybody in the Commonwealth is sourcing the original turrets from the pre-war era, but somehow they're just scattered everywhere. Whereas with the Immersive Turrets mod, it's going to take these handmade turrets and replace a lot of them, so it looks like the settlers are actually building their own turrets all around Diamond City, Covenant, anywhere that you might find one of the original turrets, you may find one of these instead. And in my opinion, this is an excellent replacer. This is far more immersive, far more believable that these turrets would be scattered around as opposed to the pre-war ones. I just failed to see how there are so many pre-war turrets still functioning and they all seem to be in the hands of raiders. It just doesn't make a ton of sense to me. I'd like to see some more handmade stuff, and I think this definitely fits the bill, especially with the existence of some handmade style turrets in the vanilla game in the form of the settlement workshop that you can build yourself. I'm surprised you don't see more of them in the hands of raiders. There are a couple scattered here and there, but really not that many. But now, thanks to the Immersive Turret Replacer, you get some really cool scrappy looking turrets scattered just about everywhere, and this adds a lot of life to the encounters. Everything looks really cool and unique and just super immersive. I know I've said that word a lot, but it's really true. I think this is an awesome mod to throw into just about any load order. It's going to add some more variety to combat, and it just makes the wasteland look a little bit nicer. The next mod we're checking out is another new standalone weapon known as the Foote LMG by Eyteen. Now, as you're looking at this weapon on screen, you may be thinking this thing looks a little bit familiar, and that's because it's actually the MG69 by me. Except that whenever I made the MG69, it was intended to be a replacer for the vanilla assault rifle, but now it is actually out as a standalone version. Finally, somebody went and took those meshes and applied it to a standalone weapon, so you can actually download this thing as its own weapon that you can use alongside the vanilla assault rifle, or you could even pair this with my new assault rifle remesh so you can use both weapons at the same time. I know a lot of people really liked the MG69 when it first came out, and everybody asked for a standalone version because they wanted to use it alongside the vanilla assault rifle. And then when I came along and remeshed it once more, people wanted to be able to use both versions of the mod, and that just wasn't possible because I wasn't making a standalone. Sorry guys, I just had other mods to work on. Still working away at that dang attachment pack. But thankfully, Eyteen came along and made a standalone version of the MG69, so now you can use it alongside any version of the assault rifle you please. And this thing actually has its own stats and features that make it different from the vanilla assault rifle, so it's actually worth keeping it in your game as a separate weapon. Taking a look at the newly added Foote LMG as a standalone weapon, this thing actually has an increased damage compared to the vanilla assault rifle, coming in at a base damage of 35. This thing is only available in fully automatic, so it has a proper support weapon style, and it has been rechambered to 308 instead of the standard assault rifle's 556. So this is a proper LMG added to the game that can now spawn alongside the vanilla assault rifle. Now, whenever we actually compare these two weapons, you'll see a pretty significant change in the stats. Like I said, this thing has increased damage coming in at a base damage of 35 in automatic, whereas the vanilla assault rifle comes in at a base damage of 20. And for those who aren't aware, this is the assault rifle. It's just been remeshed and renamed by me. But this is functionally the same weapon in terms of stats, so these are actually two separate weapons. While they may use the same animations and have a pretty similar profile, they're going to function just a bit differently, whereas the assault rifle can still be changed to a semi-automatic weapon that functions almost like a bit of a DMR with some pretty high damage upgrades in semi-automatic, whereas the Foote LMG is only available in full auto. Now, while the base damage of the newly added Foote machine gun might seem a little bit high, don't fret. This thing is actually going to spawn a little bit later in the game, and it'll start spawning on gunners, raiders, minutemen, and railroad agents after level 30. So this is a nice little late game LMG that you will be able to find out in the world along the other vanilla weapons, which is pretty cool. This weapon makes for a nice little standalone version of the MG69, so good job Eyteen, and thank you for bringing a standalone version of this weapon into the game, as I know a lot of people were asking for that. Now, the next mod we're checking out is something that may be a bit familiar to some of you out there, and that is known as Minuteman Watchtowers by Spiffy Sky Trooper. Now, the Minuteman Watchtower mod is actually a mod that existed before, but it has been completely reduxed and remade by Spiffy Sky Trooper, and it has now some really, really cool upgrades that make it perfect for a modern load order. Now for the uninitiated, this mod is going to add a handful of really tall watchtowers all over the Commonwealth that you can find and explore. When you climb to the top of these, you'll see a really cool little Minuteman encampment that was used before the fall of the Minutemen to scout around and look for trouble. And you'll even find some loot up at the top of these things. Now, one improvement from the new version is that the loot up here is a little bit less valuable. Now, that may not seem like an improvement to some of you, but in terms of balance, it really is. The old version of the mod had some really high quality loot that made these really worth your time to explore, but now the loot in the new version kind of mirrors the vanilla game, which I think is a bit better in terms of balance. It's still worth coming up here for some good loot items, but it's not going to completely change your run in the early game. This mod is also aimed to be very compatible with other mods that change similar parts of the world space, and also comes with a handful of patches for different landscape mods so that there won't be too many conflict with different trees spawning in the same area. So hopefully everything should be nice and compatible in this version. Patches already exist for this mod, and they include a patch for the Boston Natural Surroundings mod, a patch for A Forest, and a patch for the South of the Sea Adams Storm mod. So if you're using any of those mods already, be sure to grab those patches along with this one to make sure that there's no conflicting items that are phasing into each other. Now, another awesome feature with this mod is it has been made with completely vanilla assets, and so it is available for not only PC, but Xbox and even PS4, which is a big surprise, something you don't hear often on this channel, but I'm sure a very welcome addition to anybody who is still playing this game on PlayStation. If you're looking for something to spice up the landscape and add new areas to explore, I'd highly recommend picking this one up. It adds a nice little bit of verticality to the map and also lets you take in some pretty breathtaking views, especially if you have a lot of landscape mods and maybe a pretty snazzy EMB. You get a really cool look at Fallout 4's landscape. And now the last mod that we're going to be checking out this week is a brand new weapon known as the Institute Heavy Assault Laser by, you guessed it, Micalov. Micalov is at it again with yet another Institute weapon mod, and this one we actually did do a full breakdown of, checking out all of the stats and all of the attachments, and of course a nice damage test. So if you want to check that out, it'll be linked down in the description below. But a brief overview of this thing. This is going to be essentially a dedicated LMG for the Institute faction, which does seem a bit weird considering this is an energy weapon, but it essentially fits the same sort of squad automatic weapon role. This thing does use fusion cells, though it has a really interesting reload. You actually throw in a nice little pack of multiple fusion cells bundled together. I think that's really cool and makes this a nice, unique looking weapon. And there's even a patch to change out the fusion cells for the electron charge packs from Fallout New Vegas, which does have some integration with the munitions mod. So that's pretty cool, making this a weapon with ammo that may be just a bit harder to find, as of right now, it takes the regular old fusion cells, which are really common. That being said, the base damage for this weapon is super low, but it has a very high fire rate paired with a very high magazine capacity, so you can take down just about any target so long as you hold the trigger just long enough. Now, just like Micalov's other Institute weapon mods, this very well matches the Institute style in the vanilla game, and will also make use of any retextures or Creation Club skins that you decide to throw onto this thing. And I have to say, I really love the design of this weapon. It has some really cool geometry, making it stand out a little bit from the vanilla Institute laser rifle. It even has an integral bipod that looks really cool, and it has some neat attachments as well. That being said, it's not super customizable, as this thing does have a dedicated role as that sort of squad automatic weapon, whereas the standard Institute laser rifle is a bit more versatile in that it can change into different roles, be it a long-range semi-automatic rifle or a short-range automatic scattergun. That being said, the vanilla Institute laser rifle will never have the ammo capacity quite like this one. It even makes use of the vanilla Gatling laser sounds, which I think fit perfectly on this weapon whenever you're spewing lasers at that high of a rate of fire. Altogether, this makes for a really cool new option for the Institute, and I have to say I like it a lot. Now, sadly, there is not currently a version of this mod with leveled list integration. Instead, you'll have to craft it over at the chemistry station, and that is because Micalov is currently working on their much larger Institute weapon overhaul, in which this mod will be featured and will have full leveled list integration there. So if you want that feature, you're just going to have to wait a little bit longer until the bigger mod is complete. That being said, you can at least use the weapon right now, and it's available for PC and Xbox One. So if you're an Xbox user, you do get to enjoy this one, which is pretty nice. But I think that's just about going to wrap things up today. Lots of really cool mods to check out this week. If you want to try any of them, they will all be linked down in the description below, along with console links if there are any available. With that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to drop a rating. It really helps out the channel, and consider subscribing if you haven't already for more videos just like this. Big shout out to all of my patrons for supporting every single video, and a very special thank you to Avian4, Captain Chaos, Helljumper, Indecisive Wolf, Cushy, Logan Rigmated, Microhan, Moonlit Gamer, Feed, Timmy76, Youth RC, and Voider for joining that Tier 3 Patreon membership. If you'd like to support the channel over on Patreon, you can do so using the link down in the description, but it is completely optional. Thanks again for watching, guys, and I hope to see you on the next one. Peace!